Hello, good morning. Just a last look at Philippians. I hope you enjoyed reading it again in another version yesterday. It's a lovely letter. I love Philippians. It has some wonderful thoughts in it. Right at the beginning in chapter 1 and verse 6, it says here, I am sure that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. So there's no need to worry whether we'll be ready when the day comes that the Lord calls us home. If we follow him, if we do our utmost to be like him, if we learn of him, meditate on his word, read about him, think about him, yield ourselves to him, he is the one who has begun to work in us. When we came to faith, he began to work in us, and he will bring it to completion. That's his job, not ours. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to worry, not to be anxious about it at all. What a wonderful thought. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion in the day of Jesus Christ. And then there's those thoughts here. In verse 27, chapter 1, let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ. It's up to us how we live our lives. It's up to us what we put as our priorities, what we spend our time on, what we read, what we listen to, what films we go and see, what we include in our conversation and what we don't. It's up to us. But our manner of life, everything about our life should be worthy of the gospel of Christ. And then he says this, he goes on in chapter 2 to this wonderful picture of Jesus in just a few words, talking about how Jesus went from being the glorious one in heaven, putting aside all his abilities and all his powers, and becoming a man, laying it all aside and embracing the will of the Father, which was to suffer and to die. That obedience, that submission is the picture of what our submission to each other should be, and of what our submission, wife to husband should be, church to Christ should be, and children to parents should be. Submission, willing, knowing that this is the absolute, supreme, ultimate, best path, is to submit willingly to the purposes of God. And he says this, doesn't he? Do nothing, in verse 3 of chapter 2, do nothing from selfishness or conceit, but in humility count others better than yourselves. This is a high calling, my friends. This is a high calling. We need to think of others more than we think of ourselves, to value others more than we value ourselves. That's a high calling. I'm not there yet, not by any means, but it's important for us to not skimp over and to stop and think about some of these amazing thoughts. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus. We have to think like Jesus. We have to think like, isn't that? Jesus thought of the people he came to serve above thinking of himself. It's an amazing thought. It's an amazing thought, isn't it? And then he just goes on about joy. And maybe you wrote in your little notebook the names of all these people who are mentioned in this book. There's Timothy, there's Epaphroditus, and then there's these two ladies mentioned in chapter 4, Euodia and Syntyche, who need to agree in the Lord. I wonder what the disagreement was about. I'd love to know. Paul doesn't explain it. He just says they disagreed. Two women. Gosh, when two women can be at odds, they can be very at odds, can't they? But it's an example to us that whatever has passed under the bridge, Lord, forgive, so that we can work together for the kingdom. We shouldn't hold on to any trivial things by comparison, trivial by comparison to the wonder of knowing Jesus. So these people are mentioned, these women, and there's Clement and the fellow workers, all these people who had encouraged Paul and who'd been co-workers with him in this lovely church in Philippi. And here he is in prison writing to the Philippians and telling them to keep thinking of lovely things. We've thought about this verse before during this lockdown and during this last year. Verse 8 of chapter 4. Whatever is true, whatever is honourable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. We can choose, just as we can choose our attitude to everyday activities, we can choose our attitude towards what we think about. We can focus on the negative. We can worry. Some of us are worrywarts, aren't we? Some of us, anything that happens, we worry about it. We worry about something that hasn't happened. We worry about something that happened to someone else because it might happen to us. And we worry. If we sow worry into our lives, we will worry. We're not to worry. We're to focus on the things that we know are true, that we don't need to worry, because God will provide for us. And the truth is that 90%, if not 100%, of the things we think might happen to us and we worry about them will never happen to us. And we're wasting the good time today worrying about tomorrow. Is it Psalm 37? One of my favourite psalms. I think it's Psalm 37 that says, fret not. I don't know what the other translations say, but it's Psalm 37, yeah. Fret not yourself. 3 words. That's what I say to you today. Fret not yourself. Don't fret. Don't worry. Don't let things go around your head. Control your thoughts. Turn your thoughts from the worry and the fret to the beauty around you, to nature, to the provision, to the fact that we're not going to run short of food, to the fact that God is always going to provide for us, that he's never left us. Thinking about what he's done. What you've received and learned and heard and seen in me do, and the God of peace will be with you. You don't get peace through worrying. You get peace through trusting. So, can I encourage you today to move on to Paul's letter to the Colossians and read it today. Make notes if you will. Read it in one sitting. If you can possibly read it in one sitting. It is, if anything, a little bit shorter than any of the ones we've read so far. Read Colossians in one sitting and I'll see you tomorrow. And don't worry. Don't fret. Trust. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.